Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. This is your captain speaking, Debbie Buyaki. Today we'll be taking a flight over nature's view. Digging off really into topic 4, groundwater exploration will be our topic this time. I hope you enjoy this climate journey story. Seatbelts on and wheels up. After my findings in the past research topics and more specifically episode 4, during my literature reviews and my works along, kind of narrowing it down into the context-specific ways of Africa and even more specific Kenya, I came across the works of Dr. Alain Geshe. Finally, I get to introduce who he is. He's a great patron in all these works and the research I have done. So who is Dr. Alain? He's a French physicist, such a mouthful, specialized in geology, and he is the inventor of an algorithm called WATEX that can detect the presence of groundwater. He's the founder as well and CEO of Groundwater Technology International, one of my key resources as well in my research. He has an extensive career in spanning over 40 years in deep oil and gas and minerals explorations in continents across the world. This is just maybe a little background to how he also landed into the groundwater scenario and scene in 2002 while studying like satellite radar images taken from the Libyan desert for shale oil exploration. This is a whole story for sure. Dr. Alain identified unexpected features in the radar echoes of the southern side of this oil field. It became like a big case and it shoved like a lot of suspicion in the government then. And I'm not going to get into the details of it. You can find this story on his website, the Radar Technology International, where he explains how he almost lost his life and he had to go into hiding, and this is becoming as well like the Mission Impossible type of things. And I'm not suggesting that you go around saying all this, but he got into trouble for his discovery. And after all this saga, which took a lot of years, he decided, this experience gave him as well an idea to use the radar frequencies he has been using to find oil and gas and minerals. And he decided to, why not do this for water, and water, to help people. And because water is also safer, it has no drama like oil and gas. And that's how he moved into groundwater exploration. So over the next years and cause of his life works, he moved into groundwater not only in spaces where the groundwater is plentiful, but more specifically in areas that need more access to water. So he's worked in Sudan, in Niger, in Afghanistan, in Chad, in Togo, in Oman, in Angola, in Gabon, a bit in Europe, and of course in Kenya. So that's how I came across his works and how I found out that he's actually done some explorations here and things of interest that had common paths from his side and my research. And that's how I found out about him and got to know about him. So groundwater is indeed present in Africa. If we were talking about from the previous episode following up, is there groundwater in Africa? Yes, there is a lot of groundwater in Africa. In West Africa, Niger specifically being a big player. However, now narrowing it down, as I mentioned, to East Africa and Kenya specifically, there is groundwater, a lot of groundwater. And these are some facts that I did find very mind-blowing, especially for someone who had no idea. And I hope the guys that don't have an idea about this also get as mind-blown as I was when I found this out, because I lived here and I had no idea this is actually found in Kenya, and ignorance is not good, guys. So it was a pleasant discovery to also know that not only is it found in Kenya, it's actually, when you talk about Africa, the largest aquifer in Africa is actually found in my country, Kenya. Can you imagine how mind-blowing it is? It's just not only groundwater, but it's the largest in Africa, and I had no idea it existed. You will be more mind-blown when you find out where exactly it is located. It is located in, let me say, a desert region of my country, the northeastern side region of my country, basically being Turkana County. That will be the name I'll ask you to remember going forward. This was discovered by Dr. Alain. This is where, again, we cross paths. He discovered this in 2013, and he was doing this as per request of the UN. Now that I have discovered that the largest aquifer in Africa is actually found in my country, let me give you, as usual, some mind-blowing statistics this time. The aquifer is called Lotikipi Aquifer, and it cites, wait for it, over 200 billion liters of fresh water. It's located in Turkana County of Kenya. And if I may tell you more about Turkana County as we go on, you'll be mind blown too. The aquifer covers 4,164 kilometers squared of underground surface. So expansive is this. This is so, I think I'm reading this again and again, and I still find it very interesting. So this is so expansive that the water actually could supply the whole of my country, Kenya, for 70 years without running out initially. It's just too much water, if I may say, which is good because it's fresh water, which is even more good that we would have lots of 200 billion liters of fresh water just lying somewhere. Honestly, I'm Kenyan, but I've never heard of this at all until a few years ago, maybe. So on the 19th of September, 2022, this is now me explaining my research, and just listen to this more as the research itself. On the 19th of September, 2022, I was able to get a slot to discuss with Dr. Lane on this great discovery. Can you imagine just a random girl finally getting to speak with the discoverer of this great water and someone who's done so much work across the world? It was so cool. By the way, we spoke for 3 hours on and on and on, just to show how much he takes much interest in this topic and how mind blown as well I was in regard to this phenomenon on having so much water unexplored in my country. Anyway, now back to Turkana County. So that's where exactly the aquifer is located. Hundreds of billions of fresh water underground, but on top of that ground, could you imagine it's actually a desert up there, and thousands of livestock and people die each year. For the past 5 decades, really, if I can just pull a bit of statistics as far as I know, for the past 5 decades, due to drought and related atrocities, people have been dying consistently. Even so, as mentioned, I think in season 1, this past 3 years in Kenya, and more specifically in that desertic region, Turkana County, there has been a horrible drought being called the worst droughts that has been seen within the past 40 to 50 years as well. So it's so ironical that people die. This is why I think I also found it so mind-blowing. People have been dying and people will continue to die if we do nothing. But right below those grounds, there's 1,000 and actually billions of fresh water that could be used to help them. Again, just for visual understanding, I'd like you to engage with the county itself through some maps or something. Google Turkana County and see. It's located actually 3.3122 degrees north and 35.5658 degrees east of Kenya. If you need those specifics for more research, try check into what it looks like and how the life has been there for the past few years. By the way, they have such beautiful culture, and I will be telling my story, I think in the next 2 episodes, in relation to the region of the North and how I really believe this research was something that I had been having coming for 5 years. Interesting. I'm telling you, this is just a story. But Google Turkana County and Google the people there, and more or less also see how the effects of the droughts really affect the people there. So there's lots of, when you talk about drought, even when it comes to atrocities, it's the same thing with climate change. It's a lot of ripple effects, and this is also being seen as water. So if there's no water, there's starvation. There's malnourishment of children because now we can't grow crops. The animals, which is their main source of livelihood in that region, is pastoralism, and they keep livestock and cows and camels and use that as their mode of trade. So if there's no water, of course, they die. Last year, we had thousands and thousands of livestock dying. So if all your source of livelihood really die, and more so there's still no water for yourself, for your animals, for your family, it's just a whole atrocity when it comes to the lack of water. And this is still the case on why I'm referring you to go check what the life is, or Google what some atrocities that happen in the desert regions of Turkana County so that you may understand. And this is for people who have clearly never had contact with such information or such phenomena that, people can actually die of drought. It'd be great for you to go and check this out because water scarcity and droughts are real. And without water, for real, there is no life. And I hope by the end of this season or the end of this research, you will come to understand the value and essence of water. Not only being abundant in plenty, but even just the basic uses of water in households. The drought there has been more or less worsened with climate change. And this past 2 years, if I may say, it has been seen to be greatly expansive, moving now into South Sudan and into the Horn of Africa. If you have been watching the news, I think you are aware of the drought that's currently going on as well in the Horn of Africa and the atrocities that are facing the people there as well. And the other fact that maybe I should throw in, but I will mention it more deeply later, is this aquifer is so large that it actually covers 4 countries. It covers Uganda, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya. This is also some frustration I have been seeing with myself. If we have so much water facing all these 4 countries, and at the same time we have drought and people and animals as a result dying of it, how comes nothing has ever been done about it? And this is something Dr. Lane kind of understood because it has similarly for him been a frustration for the past 10 years since he discovered this water and have close to no action being implemented by the local governments in those countries or NGOs or humanitarian aiders. It's just quite the conundrum, really. And when it comes to aid and humanitarian aiders, maybe I will put you under fire for this. Is it more important to have sustainability within the communities or constantly be required to support them? And this is in regard to relief food. I find relief food in the long run more expensive than it would be to actually just tap into this water and let the communities support themselves going forward. Relief food as well, it takes a long time to get to these people, maybe 2 weeks, and the food is not quite as would have been in the best conditions because that's a desert and transporting food to those sides every time it perishes. So I think for me, if I were in a policy or in a government seat where I could make certain decisions, I would for sure invest in water. And water is actually a source of economical gain when it comes to agriculture and even the sale of water and the ripple effects. But it will not only be a source of livelihood for the people there and the source of economical value for governments or the people that will be exploring this thing, but it will also be a source of life for them. And it's cheaper in the long run and more sustainable than having to constantly year in, year out for decades be sending relief food to those areas. It's also interesting because it's in the desert, and I am going ahead of myself, but I must steal this for you. In the desert, there's a lot of sun. If the problem is mechanization and use of machines to run these systems, this is something I also found out from Grant Force. During the World Economic Forum, I think 2022, the best way is solar-powered systems. And that's the best because there's a lot of sun in the desert. You can have all the sun you want. So it won't be as expensive as it would have been to supply lots of food to the people there year in, year out. Anyway, let's go back to track. As we continue talking with Dr. Elaine, he explained to me about the facts of the aquifer. This is something that's not out there. This is him telling me because he's the one who did the discovery, and more or less the facts he himself found out for himself. These are top secret things. But the water, in fact, is human safe and it's clean and it's fresh. In fact, he told me after his first extraction, he drank a full glass of it because it's that clean and it's that safe. And that's the other advantage. I don't know if we listed it when we were having a match with groundwater and surface water, but groundwater is clean. And most of the time you can actually just drink directly from it. Anyway, the aquifer is about the size of Rhode Island. This is just now to give you more of the visual aspect of how large it is and how expansive it is. The aquifer replenishes. Remember the advantages of all this, of groundwater that we were listing. So this aquifer, the Lotikipi aquifer, it replenishes itself at the rate of 1.2 billion cubic meters of water, fresh water a year. That's a lot of water. This is something that, as I said, it would supply the whole of Kenya for 70 years non-stop without running, because every year it replenishes itself in 1.2 billion meters cubic of fresh water. This is also taking me back to the previous episode with the question of sustainability. Is this sustainable? Of course it is. 1.2 billion, yes, that's enough, and more than enough sustainability that we need to feed the masses of the whole country, if not only the people there, the communities that need it, and also the neighboring countries that also need this water for sure during these times of climate change adversities. Now, what are the sources of this river? Where do this 1.2 billion meters cubic of water come from every year? So it has a few sources. The first being Turkana River in Kenya. I think now you'll actually just have to go check out the map of Turkana County and a bit of the other countries, Uganda and Sudan and Ethiopia, to understand how all these rivers and all these channels actually feed and replenish the aquifer. So it is fed into by Turkana River, that's from Kenya. It is a freshwater river, by the way. It is fed also by the Omo River from Ethiopia, and finally it gets, I think, most of its water from the Ugandan highlands. Uganda is such a rainy and green and beautiful country, so I think I would like to just lean towards that and be biased, saying that most of it would be supplied from the Ugandan highlands. So as I was mentioned, the aquifer is so big, it covers all these countries, and more or less, as it covers all these countries, turns out they are actually the suppliers of the aquifer. So if any government from each country would want to claim ownership, I don't think they can. And if any government would want to at least tap into this water, they have every right to, because also I think some of their resources contribute to the aquifer. So it's such a strategic and good aquifer for everyone who wants to benefit from it in regards to all these countries. So the water there is in plenty, although it is found in a desertic region. That's my main conclusion. Yes, there has been numerous concerns, and this is something maybe the policymakers from my country or the people who have tried to explore that water, really, they have brought numerous concerns about the water and its salinity and, all the safety precautions when it comes to this water. But all this, of course, I found out have been sorted, and Dr. Lane also faced the same allegations, and he went ahead, because he's a doctor and a geophysicist, to decipher all these myths. So more or less, as I come to the end of this, you will find out that there is no excuse for why we cannot tap into this water and help the communities there that are suffering year in, year out for decades, yet they're walking and dying on hundreds of billions of water. So Dr. Lane telling me now that he also faced these allegations and on the safety concerns of the water. Classic example, he went ahead and sank his own borehole in Napur region of Turkana County. I will attach most of the video resources so you can understand and you can see what all the works that have been done in regards to Turkana County and extracting this water. So you can also take a look at the works he's done. He did this, can you imagine, in a record 3 days? He managed to sink a borehole and obtain fresh water in a record of 3 days. And just in 3 days, he solved problems that have been there for thousands, I wouldn't say thousands, maybe hundreds and tens of years. So it's possible, what I'm trying to say, that this water can be used. And this is the water I was telling you, he actually took a glass out of it because it was clean. It's clean and it's safe to drink. There's no concern. This plain excuse is not to do this. And in this next statement, for governments and NGOs and humanitarian aiders, this is a confirmation, maybe just a reassurance. The water is fresh, okay, and the salinity of the water, which has been maybe a concern for many people who have been drilling and trying to extract the water, is the main concern. Here's the thing. Turkana County is located on very, let me say, delicate or shifting tectonic plates. And maybe I'm just preempting this for the next episode as well. But it is found on shifting tectonic plates. And because of this, some salinity seeps into the water during drilling. So when it's drilling of the water, you need to do it at specific spots and plates that aren't shifting, or in areas that are not too rocky, so that we don't have the water seeping, the saltiness of the plates seeping into the water. And this is something that RTI, the organization I mentioned by Dr. Lane, has enough expertise on, and you can actually check out some of his works on the website there. I'm not promoting him, but I'm just saying it's something that's doable. There is a lot of delicate matters when it comes to drilling in Turkana, but it doesn't mean the water there is to extract is impossible, or the water there is salty. It's just the ground that's salty. So you need to drill at specific places. And this is something I will tell you more about in episode 6, because I know many bodies have also tried, and the water is kind of deep underground. And this is what the WATEX algorithm is all about, to see how deep it is. Just not everyone can go drilling in Turkana is what I'm trying to say, but it's possible because the technology is available and it has been done before and it's been proved before. Not only with Dr. Elaine, I'm also aware of the Israeli government that has done such works there, and they're investing heavily in agriculture now in Turkana. Can you imagine watermelons from the desert? So it's possible. There's no really reason why we'd not need or cannot act on this. Okay, maybe finances, but it's, as I said, it's cheaper to, in the long run, invest in water than in relief food and humanitarian aid in that sense. Join me for the next episode if you want more tea on this. But I hope you've been mind blown as well on how interesting and ironical this episode has been in discovering water and water in the desert. Not only just usual amounts, but billions of liters of water in the desert. Interesting. I think, as I also said, nature is the way we solve the nature problems. This is quite the classic example. In one hand, we have the problem, but nature, in the other hand, gives us the solution. So as I come into conclusion, the water is there, and the people there really need it the most and badly and urgently. So what are the next steps now that it seems like we're going down a filter funnel? We started from groundwater and sustainability and found groundwater is good. Then we narrowed down from groundwater across the world to groundwater in Africa, more specifically in Kenya, and then more specifically in Turkana County, one of the counties. So what next? We have all the information and all the statistics and proof that all this is doable and it's right and it's needed. What do we do now to help and save lives? What will I do when it comes to all this into taking action? It's not even maybe to you as it is to myself. What will I do when it comes to taking action? It's kind of a big sigh. But anyway, join me in the next episode to find out more. What you can do, what we can do, what I can do. And thank you for being here, as usual, for Earth.